as it really is in itself. And when, along with the turning back of the entire system of mentation, there is the attainment of self-realization by means of noble wisdom, which belongs to the Tathagatas, I call it nirvana. 1 added after the Chinese translations. But Wei has animitta instead of aniridha. 2 This digression on nirvana somehow found its way here. 78. So it is said. 86. In order to remove the notion of birth and to accomplish that of no birth, I teach the doctrine of no cause. But this is not understood by the ignorant. 87. This all is unborn, but that does not mean that there are no objects. They are seen to be like the city of the Gandharvas, a dream, and Maya. Objects are here, but causeless. 88. Tell me how things are unborn, without self-nature one and empty. When things are seen by transcendental knowledge, they are not subject to combination and are unobtainable. Therefore, I declare that they are empty, unborn, and without self-nature. 89. Considered one by one combination is there, the world appears to exist, but nothing is really existing. It is not as it is conceived by the philosophers. When combination is dissolved, nothing is left to be seen. 90. As is a dream, a hairnet, Maya, the city of the Gandharvas, and a mirage, which rise into view causelessly, so is the multitudinousness of the world. 91. By keeping down the theory of no causation to no birth is demonstrated. When the theory of no birth is declared, my law I3 is never destroyed. When the theory of no cause is pointed out, the philosophers are horrified. 92. Mahamedi asked. 4 How, by whom, where, and wherefore does the theory of no cause make its appearance? The Blessed One answered. For when things are perceived as neither subject to causation nor above it, then the view maintained by the philosophers of birth and destruction is done away with. 93. Mahamedi asked. Is non-being no birth? Or does it look for causation? Or is it a being's name without a corresponding reality? Pray tell me. 94. The Blessed One answered, non-being is not no birth, nor does it look for causation, nor is it a being's name, nor is it a name without a corresponding object. 95. Here is a reality which does not belong to the Sravakas, Pratyekabuddhas, nor to the philosophers. Neither does it belong to the Bodhisattvas who have entered upon the 7th stage. This is what characterizes no birth. 96. The doing away with the notion of cause and condition, the giving up of a causal agency, the establishment of the mind only, this I state to be no birth. 97. The getting rid of the idea that things are caused. The removal of the dualism of imagined and imagining, the being liberated from the alternatives of being and non-being, this I state to be no birth. 98. The mind liberated from its objective world, the getting rid of the twofold svabhava parikalpita and paratantra, a turning up at the seat of mentation, this I state to be no birth. 99. No external existence, no non-existence, not even the grasping of mind. Things are like a dream, a hairnet, Maya, the city of Gandharvas, a mirage. 1. The abandonment of all the philosophical views, this is what characterizes no birth. 100. Thus too all these words will be understood, that is, emptiness, having no self-nature, etc. The world is empty, not, indeed, because of its being empty, but because of its being empty in the sense of being unborn. 101. A system of mentality may have its rise and fall owing to causation. When there is a dissolution of the system, there is neither birth nor annihilation. 102. When a dissolution somewhere takes place among the members of the system, such existence ceases as is discriminated by the philosophers by means of such categories as oneness and separateness. 103. Nothing is born. Being is not, non-being is not, nowhere is being and non-being. Except that where there is a system, there is the rising of things and their dissolution. 104. It is only in accordance with general convention that a chain too of mutual dependence is talked of. Birth has no sense when the chain of dependence is severed. 105. As there is nothing generating, there is no birth, free from the faults of the philosophers. I talk of this conventionally according to the theory of concatenation, and this is not intelligible to the ignorant. 106. If there is anything born somewhere apart from concatenation, here is one who is to be recognized as an advocate of no causation as he destroys concatenation. 107. If concatenation works from outside like a lamp revealing all kinds of things, this means the presence of something outside concatenation itself. 108. All things are devoid of self-nature, have never been born, and in their original nature are like the sky. Things separated from concatenation belong to the discrimination of the ignorant. 109. There is another kind of no birth which is the self-essence of things realized by the wise. Its birth is no birth, and in this no birth there is a recognition. 1. 110. When this entire world is regarded as concatenation, as nothing else but concatenation, then the mind gains tranquility. 111. Ignorance, desire, karma, etc. These are the inner concatenation. A ladle, clay, a vessel, a wheel, etc. Or seeds, the elements, etc. These are external concatenations. 112. If there is any other existence born of concatenation, this goes against the law of concatenation. Those who hold this view are not established in the principles of correct reasoning. 113. If there is an object coming to exist and yet is non-existent, by what law of causation is there the recognition of it? Things here are of mutual origination, and for this reason causation is declared. 114. Heat, fluidity, motility, solidity, such notions are discriminated by the ignorant. There is a system of relations, no individual objects exist. Hence the denial of self-nature as constituting the realness of objects. 115. The physician varies his treatment according to diseases, though there is no difference in the principle of healing. The difference comes from varieties of diseases. 116. In like manner, in order to save generations of beings from their disease of passions with which they are ill, I teach people with my doctrines, knowing the power of their senses. 117. My doctrine does not vary, but the passions and powers are differentiated. There is just one vehicle. Auspicious is the eightfold path. 79. At that time again, Mahamati the Bodhisattva Mahasattva said this to the Blessed One. Impermanence. Impermanence, this is the discrimination of the philosophers. Blessed One, and you, too, declare in the canonical texts that all composite things are impermanent, to be subject to birth and destruction is the nature of things. But, Blessed One, is this right or wrong? And how many kinds of impermanency are there, Blessed One? Said the Blessed One. Mahamati, there are 81 kinds of impermanency as discriminated by the philosophers, but not by me. What are the 8 kinds? Some say that there is origination and then cessation, this is impermanency. That is to say, Mahamati, in the beginning there is something born which ceases to exist, this is impermanency. Some explain impermanency as the changing of shape. Some say, form to itself is impermanent. Some regard impermanency to consist in the changing of form, saying that in a continuous, uninterrupted existence of all things there takes place a change in their natural flavor. For instance, milk going through a transformation turns into sour milk, and that such an invisible decomposition happens to all things. This is called impermanency. Some imagine that there is an objective existence which is called impermanency. Some imagine that existence and non-existence, this is impermanency. Some say that not being born is impermanency. Because of all things being impermanent, and because of impermanency being inherent in them. 3. 1. Both Tiang and Sung have 7, not 8. The present text also enumerates only 7. The missing one is supplied in a footnote from Way 2 or matter, Rupa 3. This is the 8th in Way, and for the 7th Way has this. Again, there are other philosophers according to whom impermanency consists in not being existent at first but coming later to exist. That is to say, when things born of the elements cease to exist, nothing is seen, nothing is born, as they are separated from the substances that subsist. This is called impermanency. Now, Mahamati. By impermanency, that exists in existence and non-existence, is meant that things made of the elements one are by nature subject to destruction and have nothing in them one can take hold of, while the elements themselves are never set in motion. By impermanency, that is no birth, is meant that there is neither two permanency nor impermanency. That in all things there is no dualistic evolution of being and non-being, and that nothing is seen to exist, even when they are examined into the last atom. This not seeing of anything is another name for no birth, and not for birth. This, Mahamati, is the nature of impermanency, that is no birth, and as this is not understood, all the philosophers cherish the view of impermanency that is based on birth. 1 Buddha before Bhattaka may better be dropped. 2 The negative particle na is inserted here according to Sung. Further, Mahamati. By the conception of impermanency as objective existence is meant that there is a discrimination in the philosopher's own mind as to that which is not permanent and that which is not impermanent. What is the sense of this? It means that there is a thing called impermanency which in itself is not subject to destruction, but by whose working there is the disappearance of all things. And if not for impermanency, there will be no disappearance of all things. It is like a stick or a stone, or like a hammer breaking other things to pieces while itself remains unbroken. This is the philosopher's meaning, but as we actually see things about us, there is no such mutual differentiation which compels us to say that here is impermanency the cause, and there is the disappearance of all things as the effect. There is no such differentiation of cause and effect, and we cannot say, here is impermanency as cause and there is the effect. When there is thus no differentiation of cause and effect, all things are permanent since no cause exists to render them otherwise. Mahamati, as to the disappearance of all things, there is a cause, but it is not in the understanding of the ignorant and simple-minded. When the cause is of a dissimilar nature, the same effect is not produced. In case it does, the impermanency of all things is an example of dissimilar effect, and there is no distinction between cause and effect. But the distinction between cause and effect is observed in them. If there is an objective existence to be known as impermanence, it will be characterized with the nature of an effect producing cause, and there will be one entity contained in all things. When the notion is cherished of a cause producing effect, this means that impermanence the cause is impermanent because it partakes of the nature of the effect which is impermanent. All things then are not to be regarded as impermanent but as permanent. If impermanency as the cause resides within all things, it will come under the three divisions of time. It passes away together with things past. Its future is not yet here as things of the future are still unborn. In the present it breaks up together with things of the present. Form or matter results from the combination and variation of the elements. As the primary elements and the secondary elements are neither different nor not different, they are by nature not subject to destruction, because according to the philosophers the elements are indestructible. But, Mahamati, it is an established fact that the entire triple world with its elements primary and secondary is born, abides, and disappears. How do the philosophers conceive a separate existence of impermanency which is independent of the elements primary and secondary? While the elements themselves are neither set in motion nor destroyed because they cling to the notion of self-nature as eternally unchangeable. The conception of impermanency as existing in the first origination which ceases to continue is not tenable for three reasons. The elements cannot produce one another, because each has its self-nature different from the others. Each individual one cannot produce itself because there is no differentiation in it. The mutually separated origination of the elements is impossible because there is no correspondence between the two. Hence the conclusion that the conception of origination impermanency is untenable. By the conception of impermanency in consideration of changes taking place in external form is meant that the elements primary and secondary are not subject to dissolution. What is known as dissolution? Mahamati. even when closely examined until atoms are reached, is not the destruction of the elements primary and secondary but of their external forms whereby the elements assume different appearances as short or long. But, in fact, nothing is destroyed in the elemental atoms. What is seen as ceased to exist is the external formation of the elements. This view is cherished by the Samkhya school. By the impermanency of external shapes is meant the impermanency of form. What is impermanent is thus the external shape and not the elements. If the elements themselves are impermanent, all our everyday experiences come to naught. This is cherishing the view of the Lokayatika, according to which all things are reducible to mere words because their self-nature is never seen as born. By the impermanency of changes is meant the changing of forms and not the changing of the elements themselves, as is seen in various ornamental articles of gold which assume various forms. While there is no disappearance in the nature of gold, the ornamental articles variously change in form. These and other views of impermanency as changes are discriminated variously by the philosophers as is here described. Fire may burn all the elements but their self-nature can never be burned. When each goes asunder by itself, there is the destruction of what constitutes the elements primary and secondary. However, Mahamedi, I am neither for permanency nor for impermanency. Why? For these reasons. External objects are not admitted. The triple world is taught as not being anything else but the mind itself. Multiplicities of external existences are not accepted. There is no rising of the elements, nor their disappearance, nor their continuation, nor their differentiation. There are no such things as the elements primary and secondary. Because of discrimination there evolve the dualistic indications of perceived and perceiving. When it is recognized that because of discrimination there is a duality, the discussion concerning the existence and non-existence of the external world ceases because mind only is understood. Discrimination rises from discriminating a world of effect-producing works. No discrimination takes place when this world is not recognized. 1 Then a man ceases to cherish the discrimination of existence and non-existence which rises out of his own mind. He sees that things, either of this world or of a higher world, or of the highest, are not to be described as permanent or impermanent, because he does not understand the truth that there is nothing in the world but what is seen of the mind itself. As the meaning of discrimination is not understood by all the philosophers who have fallen into wrong ideas of dualism and who are people of no spiritual attainment, impermanency comes up to them as a subject for discussion. Mahamedi 2 The triple aspect of all things as distinguished as of this world, of a higher world, and of the highest, is the outcome of word discrimination, but this is not understood by the ignorant and simple-minded. So it is said. 118. By the deluded philosophers the notion of impermanency is discriminated as origination cessation, as transformation of external forms, as an independent existence, as form. 1 Read after the Chinese. 2 Sarvatirthakara is dropped, according to the Chinese. 119. There is no destruction of things. The elements abide forever as regards their self-essence. Immersed in varieties of views the philosophers discriminate impermanency. 120. To these philosophers there is no destruction, no birth. The elements are permanent as regards their self-essence. Whoever discriminates impermanency. This is the position of the philosophers. 121. According to the Buddha, there is nothing in the world but the mind itself, and all that is of duality has its rise from the mind and is seen as perceived and perceiving. An ego soul and what belongs to it they exist not. 122. The abode and realm of Brahma, etc. I declare all to be of mind only, outside mind only, Brahma, etc., are not attainable. Here ends the 3rd chapter, on impermanency, in the Lankavatara Mahayana Sutra.